And welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Trip Mitchell. That is Randall Carlisle.
How are you today?
I am wonderful. You, I am jealous of.
Why?
Because last week's guest, Angela Martindale, brought in all these energy bars.
Yes.
And you gave me one.
I kept the rest, and look at how much energy I have now. See,
but what was very funny is when she talked about us all getting together to work out in the morning, you look like you'd just seen Ebola.
Exercise is not one of my strong points.
But
I eat pretty healthy, and I have a pretty clean lifestyle now, but exercise is not part of it. So,
you never were doing curls on the set
No.
in commercials?
I was afraid I'd get too muscular, and I'd have too many women coming after me, and I just didn't want that.
It is a concern, but the purpose of this show is we've great opportunity. We've met so many wonderful people who've been in addiction, but most importantly have made the decision that they want out, and recovery is an amazing thing. And we've talked to over 50 people who've been in the throes of addiction,
Sure.
come out the other side, and have had amazing life. And we'll give out a phone number in just a little bit. Odyssey House.
I saw this article, and it's no wonder we have the problem we have today. I mean, this blew me away. Guess how many opioid pills were shipped between 2006 and 2014 just in America?
300 million people. Yeah. So my guess is probably close to 1 billion pills.
100 billion. 100 billion opioid pain pills between 2006 and 2014.
That is
wonder why people are hooked and having problems now?
Boy, and I'm hearing horror stories from one of the other shows. We had a woman who had a disease where just incredible facial pain. And she's fortunately gotten off and found a powder that can help her, a natural powder. But she said having something like this, once all of a sudden the opioid crisis came to light, and then she couldn't get enough pills.
Right.
So we had a case for 10 years where physicians were getting, the opioid company, and the one in particular, was encouraging people. They told
sure.
physicians that this was not addictive, and there could be nothing further from the truth.
100 billion. I mean, that's shocking to me. 100 billion of anything is shocking.
Wow, that is...
I know, so...
God bless. Well,
little factoid to tell at your next party.
Who's our guest today?
We have... can we bring her on now?
Let's do it. Okay, we have the band is in rehearsal right now.
Mary Jo McMillen, who is in charge of USARA. And we always have a debate when we've had some of your other people on. You've always told me, because we've known each other for a long time, that it's USARA, but everybody says USARA. And you always, then when I ask you, you say, either way will do.
Either way is fine.
What do you prefer?
Well, let's put it this way. I say USARA because it was Sarah, Utah, when we had our first inception. But the name changed to USARA. But I called it Sarah, Utah, so it's USARA. But everybody, including my own husband, calls it USARA. So it really is both ways. And I really need to get used to calling it USARA so I don't confuse people.
We'll call it USARA then.
You call it USARA. Right. I think that has been the majority favorite, and we go with the majority favorite.
I've known Mary Jo both as a news person and now in the recovery community. And my observation, just a personal opinion, that USARA is probably one of the most important organizations that exists in terms of recovery in Utah, because of the fact that they're not a treatment center. They're not, and she can explain everything they do, but it's just we refer people when they get out of our program to go to USARA, and they just do so many things that is unbiased. Not saying if people come in and say they have a problem, they don't say, well, go to Odyssey or go to First Step or something like that. It's just we'll help you if you need help. So maybe you can explain, first of all, what USARA stands for, but I'm just so impressed with your organization, because it's just, without you guys, the recovery community would not be what it is today. So.
Well, thank you, Randall. I appreciate that. And you know, we talked a lot. You know, when I first met you, it was exciting that you were very interested in what we were doing. So USARA is the Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness.
My first suggestion was change the name because it's too hard to say. But
Well, I
that's
have a couple renditions, but I think it's mostly known as USARA because, and you have to have, of course, your nonprofit status, and that's the.
Okay, try it one more time, slowly.
Okay, Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
it's a
what do you-
lofty.
and what
it's
do
a
you-
lofty name.
What do you do?
So what we do is we are, of course, a nonprofit recovery community organization. And so recovery community organization, we are one of about 100, over 100 in the United States. There is an organization by the name of Faces and Voices of Recovery. And about 10 years ago, when I was on the board of USARA, we had one employee at that time, and then I actually that employee left, and I became the director. At that time, I was like, well, who are we and what do we do? Because we had an idea, we had a vision, and mostly what we were doing was advocacy work. We were really trying to have the conversation with legislators, community members about recovery being something that was individual and ongoing for somebody with a chronic illness of addiction. And
So just for kind of a controversial thing to be up at the state capitol advocating for people in recovery. You probably in the beginning felt like I'm not loved here.
Well, there was actually the contrary. I actually think that when we first started out, there was like, well, you had some people say, well, I'm not very familiar with anybody with addiction.
Right.
Or, secretly what wasn't being said is, oh, well, I don't know any of those people. and I think that's just the stigma of the time over 10 years ago. And we've come a long way since then. Since then, we've had legislators that have been impacted personally by somebody they know, by a family member, and we really had, I think, quite a momentum of legislators really understanding that people with substance use disorders were people with a brain disorder, and they needed treatment, they needed help. So I think what has happened in this recovery movement and having recovery community, which is people telling their stories about recovery, all different types of recovery, and that really contributed to this, I think, momentum of advocacy that really brought it to the forefront of what's happening in our state. And then, of course, the opioid epidemic did that. But addiction's been around for a long time in the state of Utah. Substance use
Since caveman
disorders,
days,
that's
probably.
it. Alcohol still being the leading contributor to people's substance use disorder, along with methamphetamine, and then here we are with opiates. And I think what happened is people without
And do you think
abuse.
that opiates might have been so we've met a lot of people who maybe grew up in LDS families, no history of alcohol, no history of drugs, get hurt, and then all of a sudden opioids become part of their life. Mm-hmm. And as Randall pointed out,
100 billion.
Yeah,
to go somewhere.
You had access to them. That all of a sudden has allowed legislators to meet a lot of people that they wouldn't normally interact with.
Yeah.
What services do you? Because you provide so many services now, if you could just go through them.
Sure. So primarily there's the advocacy piece, but something that happened because USARA and recovery community organizations are made up of individuals in recovery themselves, and that is a status that we have to have according to the bylaws of Faces and Voices of Recovery and our own bylaws as an organization. So more than 50% of the people have to be in recovery themselves, and really it's about, we shouldn't be making decisions about people with addiction who are in recovery without their voices, and so that is the foundation of what we do. And so in addition to advocacy, we did some celebrations like Recovery Day, which now we have 7, I think 8 throughout the state of Utah that happen in the month of September. And then what we also do is we have peer recovery coaches, and they're certified peer specialists that have some training, but what we do is take that training in a non-clinical environment and
non-judgmental.
culture. And non-judgmental is really invite people to come in to talk to us about what they think they need, to help be successful in their own recovery. And they determine what it is. We don't prescribe what it is. We don't have a treatment plan for them. We do help them identify maybe some goals that they want to have as part of what we call recovery plan. Help them gain something that we call recovery capital. And recovery capital are the things that would make me successful in my recovery, such as, my housing. Do I have stable housing? Do I have health care? How healthy am I? Do I have the access to getting the health care that I need? Do I have social and family support? Do I have people who are there for me when I might be struggling? With substance use, it could be a return to use. It could be a co-occurring mental health condition. But I need that social support and people who understand. And then, just an overall ability to have a sense of purpose. What do I do for work to support myself? How do I feel of value in the community? So those are kind of some of the basic things that we help people identify for themselves.
And peer support is what I was referring to about clients who are leaving Odyssey House and who have been in residential care or anything. We frequently say, if you don't know what you're going to do or where you're going to go to USARA and get a peer support person, and it's all free, by the way. It's and you could go in high if you wanted, if you relapsed or anything else, and there's no judgment. It's a really
no stigma to it.
No, none whatsoever. It's a really cool place to walk into. They're located, I suppose we should say, this is an informal setting, so he's
come on in and have a seat. No, come on in.
Okay.
Come on in and have a seat.
And you're located on 21st South.
180 East, 2100 South, in the TV Specialist building.
Oh, I know where that. I bought equipment there. We walk in and.
So that's our first center, and so we have a recovery center also in St. George, in Ogden, and in Price, Utah, and we have a recovery coach in Moab. So really, what we wanted to do was provide recovery support services and help people start to have a place where recovery meetings could happen. So whether you're a person who might be interested in 12-step support, young people in recovery, smart recovery, Dharma recovery.
What is Dharma recovery?
Dharma recovery?
That's what I've done.
So Dharma recovery is...
I did dumb recovery.
Oh, you did dumb recovery. Well, I actually wouldn't call somebody's recovery dumb, because if you just make an effort and it's on your own. And sometimes that can be challenging because, if I have some impaired thinking, some of my own decisions aren't always the best decisions.
You think?
And even totally sober, that happens. So, you have mentors and advisors. And I think in life, it's normal anyway. If I want to do something and be better at what I do, I'm going to seek out some support from somebody who has some experience. And a lot of that came, what we learned about recovery support and peer support really came out of Alcoholics Anonymous, where they had sponsors and mentors to help them stay sober a day at a time. And so other 12-step programs and I think the peer movement has really evolved to having lots of different ways that people recover, not just my way. I'm a person in long-term recovery myself, and I did it through an anonymous program. And I have 34 years of no drug or alcohol use.
And she was a bad girl before she got sober.
I actually went to treatment for an eating disorder. That's how much in denial I was about my substance use problem. I didn't have an eating disorder problem, but when I went to treatment, they do things called urine drug screens. And there was a few, and I hadn't admitted to like 3 or 4 things that were in there. And so they said,
it's funny how those screens all of a sudden bring out honesty.
I was like, I had to explain myself, and they had another, they said, well, you have an eating disorder, and we were also going to have you look at what we called chemical dependency at that time. And, I've been grateful that I've been able to sustain recovery, but it was with a lot of help and support from my family, from having health care insurance. I had a place to live, and I think one thing that we see as advocates is there's a lot of people who have a lot of barriers to their recovery. And if you don't have a safe place to live and you don't have access to medical care and access to treatment, ongoing therapy after you go through treatment,
sure,
such as Odyssey House, First Step, House of Hope, any of the, there's many treatment programs who help that foundation. What we really need is, what do you do to follow up and connect? And if you don't have that connection to other people who are doing the same thing, working on themselves to not return to substance use, the likelihood of you returning when you struggle is going to happen, and that's the chronic nature of it. So we really want to help support people, and if they have a setback, recovery is a continuum. And if I have an incidence of use, then I'm still on this continuum moving towards my wellness. And I think that's really how we see recovery now. And that's been controversial.
Oh, sure. I mean,
between abstinence, now we have people on medication for opiates,
Right.
which is appropriate so they can be stable enough to recover. And so, we're really dealing with a problem that has gotten so out of control. We're doing everything we can, I think, as a state and as a community to help people get better. But we've got a long road to haul.
but one of the things I've learned from the good fortune of working with Randall and Lee through the show is that the state of Utah is actually very progressive in many ways.
Yeah.
And one would think that given the LDS culture, that we wouldn't be very progressive. Nothing could be further from the truth.
That's really so. The LDS Church did their LDS Family Services actually got permission from the General Service Office of Alcoholics Anonymous to do the LDS 12 steps, and that's I think probably at least maybe 20 years old. It could be
Wow.
15, 20 years old. So they were really leading out at the time to help the people in their community to have a platform that they could recover that was affiliated with the church. And that's been quite a popular thing for people.
And we had a guest early on in the show who was a LDS bishop in recovery.
Yeah.
And that was, the light went on there. I'm going, that is surprising and encouraging.
I think we probably have more than we know. And again, I still think we're struggling with stigma. I still think people are concerned about, I need to remain anonymous because I'm fearful of somebody who might judge me in a negative view. And that's still alive and well, stigma. We've come a long way, but I think people are still very careful. Who do I want to know? Not only am I in recovery, but is my loved one in recovery?
I was afraid of that all my life. I thought, my God, how could I? If people knew that the guy they watch on TV is a functioning alcoholic, how can they respect me or believe me or anything else? And it really had nothing to do with my skills as a news reporter.
Right.
Yeah,
we're very capable people.
Though you did it the easy way. You were always sober.
Well, I was sober at work.
Yeah, I mean, much easier.
And she was beginning to say, and I found this at the meeting, through meetings and everything else. Alcoholics and addicts are very intelligent people, very creative people.
They're my favorite people. I would say, people with substance use disorders. I mean, they're like everyone, because anyone is susceptible to addiction, and it can happen as a result of circumstances. It can happen like it did for me as a result of kind of being an adolescent looking to party and being introduced to some things that I thought made life more pleasurable. And for a period of time, it did, and it was fun until it wasn't. And then it became more of a coping mechanism. And that's when things really spiraled out of control, which they typically do for people. Other people don't always become addicted, but a lot of us are susceptible to
Certainly.
become addicted.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back and get a chance to find more about USARA, whatever the heck
Saras,
it is.
USARA.
We'll say
We'll be right
USARA.
back.
Okay.
And welcome back to Odyssey House Journals. We are learning a ton today. That's Randall Carlisle. I'm Trip Mitchell. And before we go any further, let's give a phone number out.
The Odyssey House number, just for information, we're not saying if you need some information about a loved one or yourself, call 801-322-3222. And again, we say this every show, we're not trying to push Odyssey House. It just happens to be where I work, and that's what we call the show. So.
And it's an opportunity to talk to someone. If you've got someone, a loved one who's got some alcohol, drug issues, great number to call.
Or you could call USARA because they pass out any kind of general information you would have about anything, and they're totally Odyssey's non-judgmental as well, but these guys are like really middle of the road everything when it comes to.
And what is a good number for USARA?
It is 385-210-0320.
Okay.
And even better, our website, which is www.myusara.com.
Perfect.
One of the cool things about USARA that I don't know if you thought about this when you got sober. I certainly thought about it a lot. is I can't have fun if I'm sober. And you guys do a lot of social activities to include the recovery community and their families. You want to?
Yeah, so the Recovery Day events are very festive events. They happen in September. Every Friday night we do what's called Family Fun Night. And on Friday nights at our Salt Lake City Center, St. George, I'm not sure how frequently, but in Price also, and once a month in Ogden, we do a night where the families can bring their young children and they can have a social evening. In our Salt Lake Center, what we have is a movie night. So we do a PG-13 or a G general audience movie. So the kids, we put beanbags out, we have pizza and popcorn so that they can all gather to watch a movie, and adults can also talk too. They can't drop off their kids, but they're there to kind of support each other. And so that's been a really fun thing that we've gotten to do. And then we try to have events like there might be a spring celebration like an Easter egg hunt or trunk or treat. And so really trying to identify what the community wants, and it really is the community that puts it together. We've worked on several things. Odyssey House is always coming out in full force with all the peers. We call them peers, and participants that come out to do all of our activities. We have recovery walks as well. So one of the things that I think is exciting about having a center is that people from all different types of recovery can come and gather, and they have a common purpose.
That's why I say her organization is so important, because it's there. It's
kind of omnipresent. It's not political in any way. It's there to support everyone in recovery.
And it also, the other thing I really wanted to talk about too, mention, is family support. We also have families in recovery. And family members, we run a program throughout the state called CRAFT for family members. It's CRAFT Family Support. CRAFT stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. So we help family members learn how to cope with the addiction, a loved one's addiction, so that they themselves aren't always getting beat up by the behaviors that their loved one has when they're under the influence of substances, and also all the fears and discomfort when you have a loved one with addiction. So the family member really is impacted. So we really try to help them learn about how to deal with it in their own way so that they have their own recovery. And that's been really successful.
And the key there is, so many families, you could have like a mom and dad and maybe 3 kids, and one of the kid has a substance use issue, and so they become addicted to the kid's substance use issue, and sort of the other 2 kids are good anyway. We don't have to worry about them. It screws up families. It screws up husbands and wives with a good guy and a bad guy.
Oh yeah, you don't want to help that. It's so difficult in that situation.
That's why family support groups are so important.
Where do you get your funding from?
She's out on the street corner with a sign begging all the time.
That's happened on a couple occasions. But of course, we are a nonprofit, so we do get money from contributions from donors, but a lot of what we get is government funding. So the state of Utah, the Division of Substance Use and Mental Health, which is through the Department of Human Services, we contract with them to do recovery support services that are delivered by peers. One of our newest programs is ARCHES, Addiction Recovery Coaching in Emergency and Healthcare Settings, and Healthcare and Emergency Settings. And so we deploy peers who can meet somebody at an emergency department when they are in a crisis from opioid.
And we've met some of the... And
we had Riley and Amy on.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't have been more impressed with those 2. And, you're in a hospital, the world has come apart, and to have a friendly voice there, I think pretty wonderful.
All peers really have that capacity to connect with someone else, and they don't have to explain a lot. It's really just saying, I understand because I've been through something similar, and then we say, how can we help you? Because I really believe that individuals do know what help they want. Now, they might not like what options are out there, but if we start to have that conversation, they really start to get to a place that we can help them maybe build a more solid foundation of what does help them. And I think a lot of people sometimes just need that conversation. They need that voice to start to let somebody know, this is what I think will help. Even if it might not be the thing that I think that they need to help,
right.
They're going to have to go down their path, and I can make some suggestions and offer support, but they still have to be the steward of their own recovery.
And that is such a good point, because it's different for each and every one of us.
And the cool thing when they were in there, they don't say like, Well, you almost died from a heroin overdose. You need to go to recovery or treatment. And I've talked to Amy and Riley about that. Well, you've got options. You could go out and keep using, and you might end up like you are right now. You could go to a treatment program. You could, you could use MAT, but it's not. This is what you need to do. These are the options. It's up to you, and that's a cool way to deal with people.
It is. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you very much.
She's one of my favorite people, and your organization is just so super.
Wow.
Let's give the phone number out one more time and the website.
Sure. It is 801-21. Oh, sorry.
385.
385.
How about that? I knew.
I know. Thank you. 385-210-0320, and it is on the website myusara myusara.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Skip. I really appreciate it.
Tip.
Is it tip?
Trip.
It's Trip.
Trip. Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Hey, Skip.
Our guest,
I like that better than Trip.
our guest
Trip.
next week calls me Wedge. And he'll
Oh,
explain
wait.
why.
Okay, I'll
That's
have
for
to- I'll
skiing
ask later.
technique.
Okay, got you.
We really
Okay,
appreciate
thanks
you
so much.
watching. What do we want to do? Do you want to explain, because you're a young tech guy, what should we do to get more followers with our 12,000 followers?
If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, you can subscribe. And on YouTube, you can subscribe as well. And and share it as much as you can, because we're trying to get more listeners and viewers. And
We've had 100,000 views on Facebook.
yeah.
And about good week, 12,000 listeners, which in the state of Utah.
So
Shows
Mary
them
Jo,
Everyone
because
important.
we get analytics on the thing. So if you only draw 5,000 or 6,000 and somebody else drew 11,000 or 12,000, I don't know what that. But we won't know until after we air this.
Well,
We'll send the information to your agent.
Okay, please do. I think she'll be really excited to get that information.
Okay.
But you're getting you're getting the message of recovery out there, and that people with substance use disorders do recover. And
Yep.
you guys, thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.